So what colors will we be using today, Kina?
Okay, so the same palette as always. Okay, so this is ultramarine blue and your magenta, yellow, black and white. So if you've noticed there's a pattern, I almost always choose the same palette, and that's often because I have the palette preset. It's just like the palette that I have in my acrylic box thing, and when I go to kind of doodle paint to kind of make my next painting, those are the colors that I just have on hand. So it ends up being like the same painting over and over again. Not the same painting, the same palette over and over again. Alrighty. So the steps I will have, yes, they are on, the first step is on screen. Okay, so welcome everyone to our session number, I can't remember, 9, 10, 8? I think it's 9. Desert sunset painting we're going to make today. It should take around 2 hours, I think. It shouldn't be too much longer than that. We always have a break halfway and to let things dry, kind of like the first layer. And you feel free to ask me questions at any time. You can unmute, you can whatever. We're a small group, so I encourage it. And yeah, let's have fun. Okay? I have to do the intro because this is recorded, and then later on it goes on YouTube, and then it's like, otherwise it's just me just, rambling and talking. And I can edit out whatever I want, so... Oh my goodness, last month, we did the Space Nebula, and we were very chatty. I think the time elapsed for the whole video was like 3 hours or something crazy. Wow. And I had to sit through and listen to all, and it was ridiculous because I couldn't hear you guys. I could only hear myself. So I was listening to the playback, and it's just me giggling like nonstop. It was great. It means we had a good time. Yes. All right, so on your palette, I only want you to have blue so far. Don't take out all your colors at once because they will dry, first of all, unless you're using a fancy schmancy palette that keeps your colors wet. If you've already put all your colors out on your palette, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. You might just have to replenish your colors a bit later on. So we're gonna start with ultramarine blue for our sky. And we're going to use our big fat brush. I like to use the big one. Oh, can you see? Oh, this is my palette cam. Ooh.
I want a palette cam. That's
right? Awesome. Isn't that fun? It's just my regular my webcam, my face cam that I use on Twitch. But Brad got me this he got me this tripod. Not tripod. It's like a lamp holder for a desk, and like it has an arm, and it's attached to the counter, which is like really close to me, and it grabs my main camera, so now the main camera is floating. It can point anywhere. It's amazing. Nice. So like I have my whole desk I can put things on, and I can use the tripod for palette cam. Anyway, if you're ever curious when I'm mixing, that's what this camera's for. So we're gonna grab our biggest brush because we're gonna be covering a lot of area. You're going to load it up with some blue. And we're going to cover, I'd say, the top third of your canvas in this blue. No particular way, rhyme, or reason. You're just going to cover it. I probably should have chosen a bigger brush for this. If you have a bigger brush, I mean, it depends on what kind of size canvas you're using. Typically, like the first couple layers on any painting, you should be aiming to cover as much space as possible in the least amount of detail as possible. And then you slowly work your way down using smaller and smaller brushes and going into more and more detail. So that's normally why, like, when you get a brush kit, it's like it has, big to little. It's not just because, oh, we're giving you a variety. It's because when you do a painting, you should aim to, you're not going to try covering the whole thing with like your little round one, right? So I mean, you could, but that would just be silly and very time consuming.
Sounds painful.
Yeah, a little bit.
Let's paint the sides.
Yeah. Yes, good reminder. Although they can't hear you, so I'll have to repeat it. Yes, paint your sides. have to remind myself. Yeah, that way when you're finished, you don't have to do it later, and you have the right colors already on the edges. Some people like to paint the edges just in black, which also looks kind of cool if you don't really feel like mixing the same colors over and over again. When one reason I want the twirly easel is because the bottom like never gets touched, and then like if I'm painting in oils, the canvas slowly just kind of glues itself to this easel unless I keep lifting it. But every time you touch it, your hands get dirty because it's oil, and it takes like 3 years to dry. Okay, or 2 weeks, but still. And then I can never paint the bottom. Yeah.
It's really, yeah, you definitely need it.
It's the spinny easel. It's on my wish list now. Yeah.
Good. Should be on everyone's list.
That's the next thing you need to buy on Twitch.
I was thinking, yeah,
the glass you have on Twitch.
Yeah, so right now it's set for a GoPro. My donation goal on Twitch right now is a GoPro camera so that I can bring it snowboarding and show you guys, and I can bring it kayaking, and I can bring it on my, I don't know, any adventure. But it also would be nice to be able to clamp it to the top of the easel so that it looks down to do like hyper super detail. It's a toy. It's not something I really need, but that's what the donation goals are for. It's like, you know, something that would be nice to have that kind of would enhance the experience for people on watching on Twitch, but not a must-have. The must-haves I just buy myself, like this tripod thing and whatever.
Yeah, I was also looking at GoPros. I was looking at them, and like the 8 is great. The 7 is the only one that's not compatible without, like, not Twitch compatible.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to go like 8 and up.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Of course, the GoPro 8 is the most expensive. Of course.
There's a 9 too, though.
Oh, I didn't know there was a 9.
There's a 9.
Well, I'm sure they'll just keep going.
Yep.
I'm going to grab some white paint, and I'm going to add it and make it neighbors with my blue, but not too close neighbors. Just because we're going to use a lot of colors, so I don't want to put it too close, but also not too far. I use my trusty Menchie spoons for my paint scoops, because I buy all of my paint in bulk because, I mean, I use a lot of it. And that way I can, when I do teach classes, when I would teach class, I would just bring the bulk pieces and just dish it out, right, for people. It saves a lot of plastic, because I used to get these, I used to just buy the tubes, which they say they're recyclable, but like, they're covered in paint. You have to wash them out, and it's a lot of plastic. I don't know. And I don't think the lid's recyclable. Anyway, I made the switch to buying in bulk, and it's cheaper anyway. I get them at Wallach's, and I have a nice teacher's discount at Wallach's. Yeah. But it requires me to spend like $1,000 a year in art supplies. I'm sure I could do that. Like,
I spend like $70 every time I go into an art store.
yeah.
No fail.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It is dangerous.
Yeah, we're adding white next.
Yeah, so put white on your palette, and then we're going to use the same brush, and you're not going to wash it.
I already stuck them.
That's okay. If you already washed your brush, that's okay. I'm kind of lazy, and I don't wash my brushes between all my steps unless I absolutely have to. It's also a time saver, but because I know I'm working from this layer into another layer that will blend, we're doing the clouds, I'm not going to bother washing my brush. So I think you can still see my little cam. You can't really see the white on white, but...
Well, I didn't do a good job washing it, so I'll just stop there.
There you go. So you don't need to make sure it's clean or anything. But I will advise that when you take your white, what I like to do is I kind of make a mini color wheel on my palette. So I'm going to grab the white from the side that the blue is on, and I'm just going to kind of pull some to the side. And that way, later on, like, it's not even, wow, I guess it was already dry. Just so that we have this, like the source paint is still white. We don't want to touch that, because later on when we use white for something else, like the stars. We want to make sure some of it's still clean. So for now, I'm just going to kind of pull some off to the side, and it hangs out between the blue and the white. And you can see it's already turning kind of a really light blue because I didn't wash my brush, but that's okay because we're going to make some clouds. Now, if you have a more rounded, I'm still using the same size brush, but depending on the brush you have, it might make clouds easier or harder. I tend to like using the filbert brushes for clouds in general. Filberts are the flat, round-edged ones. I'll show you a clean
this
one.
like this?
Yes, that is good. Jade, I'm not sure I gave you a rounded flat, but it should be okay. Your clouds will still be good. But yes, so I'm just letting you know that if you ever do clouds, it's easier with a bit of a rounded brush. So for the next step, this should still be, mine is drying so quickly, we're not gonna get very much blending action, but ideally your sky should still be a little bit moist. And we're going to kind of do clouds on the border, kind of on the bottom inch or so of your blue sky, and then extending a bit lower. So when I do clouds, I'm just kind of making little circular motions with my brush right onto the canvas like that. And it's like a little curve, little bumps like that. So what you're going to notice is that if your blue is still wet, it's just going to turn into a medium light blue, and that's okay. What you're going to do is you're going to keep kind of pulling at it and making little curvy motions. I'm not reloading my brush with paint just yet. I'm letting it kind of run out, and I'm going back and forth over this cluster here until I'm completely out of paint and the brush is just pulling at the canvas like that. So it starts off white and it gets a bit more mixed as you go. And I'm going to repeat this all the way across. This is just the first layer. We're going to have a lot of layers of these clouds. And again, don't worry if it's not perfect because we're actually layering several things on top of it. So this is just the base layer. It's the easiest one. It's great as a warm-up. If you totally mess up, it's okay. All right? So don't feel like, there's a whole bunch of pressure, because really the things that people end up looking at the most are the small things closer to the horizon. And that's going to be like our little cacti, which we do in 2 seconds. The sun, and like the little hill and the stars. No one's going to look at your clouds if you didn't like, if you're worried that they're not nice. Because a lot of people worry that they can't paint clouds, but really, like, you can. Believe me. Trust me. Believe in yourself. You can do it. I believe in you. Let's make some clouds. And like, in the sample piece that I had, I was really messy with my clouds, and sometimes being able to see all of those brush strokes and the thick paint is really awesome because it looks like a painting, it's really textured and it adds like, I don't know, I think it looks cool. It adds that personality to it. And they're all far off, so it's okay. They don't have to be like super detailed. We're not going to really shade them. So I'm just going to keep going all the way to the right-hand side. I'd say there's almost as much space between the top of my clouds and the top of my canvas as there is from the bottom of my clouds to the top. So it's like a layer cake right now. They're pretty evenly sized. Again, I'm still trying to keep my white kind of clean as I grab paint from it. Again, not the end of the world if you get your white all dirty, just add more to the side. But never dip your brush in your paint source because then you're just screwed, because you don't want to get your swatch, your main source all dirty. And grab your edges if you can.
I'll remember that for next time.
Always do
Sally.
the edges.
Thank you for reminding us. Let's do our edges. Okay. So ideally, for this layout, I have it like medium blue all the way through because I didn't wash my brush. I'm going to still not wash my brush, grab more white, and then I'm going to do a top layer just to make it a bit lighter on the top. And that's kind of like shading. You know, we can say that the tops of the clouds are a bit more white because as we go lower, they're going to be more and more affected by the sunset. So the very, very tops we can add. And if you can't get your brush clean to get these tops, you can grab a different brush to do the tops. If you prefer, if you want to make sure the very, very tops are pure white. For me, my brush is always this like weird, like you can excavate it to see what colors I've used. Like the closest to the metal here is the darkest blue. And then you can see that I moved up. I switched to mixing it with white, so it's a medium blue. And then on the very tip is just pure white. So it's kind of neat to see how you can see what colors you've used. Sometimes even I'll use the other side of the brush with a different color, so then it's as if I have two colors on the same brush. It's a handy dandy
Well, I like
trick.
to do that when you dip it on one side of the brush and then you dip the other color on
Exactly.
the other side. Things blend.
Exactly.
I do that a lot for my circles.
It's a little cheating tip, trick, whatever. Two colors
So-
on one brush.
You're not using water a lot in this. It's very much like a dry brush,
That's right.
right?
Yeah, and I don't usually use water with my acrylics, actually.
Really?
Probably because I treat them more like oils. But I also, the Wallix paint that I use, well, actually I try to get really thick acrylics. And I know that Anita, that for your abstract designs, you need fluid acrylics, right? You need it to be really smooth to get those sharp edges, right?
But I don't actually use fluid acrylics. I use normal acrylics because I find fluid acrylics are just very expensive.
Oh, yeah, they are, but they cover so nicely. Oh, they are nice.
I was looking at dioxine purple, and I was like, oh, why is it like $38?
Oh, man. Yeah, some of the pigments they use are like intense. All right. So worth it though. Oh, I bet a little goes a long way too.
Yeah.
All right. I'm aware that I'm probably faster than you, but let me know if you ever need me to completely stop.
I don't know if I'm doing this right. I'm just doing like little circles, but it's like,
I can see yours from here and it looks great. It looks like clouds and a sky.
okay, great.
I'm going to start prepping my next color, but don't freak out. I'm just putting it on my palette. Ah! I need to be ahead of you guys, so, you know. The next color we're going to be using is the magenta. My favorite color. I had to buy more today and like, not today, I did a Wallix order and it was for pickup and I picked it up today. And I bought, they must think I'm sure they see my buying history, but they must think I'm crazy. But like I bought like the same color in a bunch of different brands to see which one I liked the best, because this giant jug that I have here is from Dessert, and I love Dessert, I do, but I don't have discount with them. So I only go there if I'm just there to browse, but if it's for my main supplies, I'll use Wallix because that's where I get the teacher's discount. And like, but they don't have a giant jug of this color at Wallix, so now I have to try like, or they do, but it's probably not exactly the same. Anyway, so I bought like the same color in a bunch of different brands to see which one Wallix has that's closest to this one. It's not, I don't like using pure red. I like magenta because of the way it mixes with yellow. It makes such an electric orange. Like it makes such a nicer orange than just straight up red with yellow. That's just my experience. It's running a bit low. It's okay.
Do you need a specific brush for magenta?
I'm just gonna use the same one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna use the same brush for the next color. I'm using my spoon to grab it out though, just because I don't want to load up my brush prematurely with too much magenta. I used to grab colors with the same brush that I was working with, but after a while I realized it became harder to mix some of the colors I wanted because I had just scooped it all up with my brush that I was supposed to be using, you know? So spoons are handy. Okay. I put the magenta kind of next to the blue. It's not really There's no rhyme or reason to that placement. I just know that I'm going to be using yellow, and I'll probably put the yellow here later and the black over there somewhere. If you have a palette that has like little sections and stuff, that'd be cool too, but I just use a plate. And then if you let it dry, an empty brie container, yeah. Nice. Yeah, if you let it dry, then it all peels right off. It's so handy.
And very appealing. I love that part.
The acrylic peel is like so satisfying. It's like if you ever put like glue in your fingers as a kid. Because I'm sure we all did that, right? I wasn't the only one.
I think we even had a lesson to be able to peel it off. Like, yeah, it's time to peel the glue, children.
What a fun activity. It's glue peeling time, guys.
You guys had all the fun.
Let's learn about polymers.
Save the teacher a job, I guess.
That's true. Let's make it a game. I remember, like, you have to pick up 10 pieces of trash before you can go out to recess. I'm like, that's not a game. That's just, ugh. Just chores. Come on, man. All right. I have my same brush, not washed. I am grabbing some of the magenta and kind of making a little swatch next to it on my palette. It's lighter, and it has still some of that leftover blue in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of it into the middle and then grab some some white to make pink. I'm going to grab some white. Our palette's getting a little messy, but that's okay. It means we're using it. All right, so now I have this like delicious looking bubblegum pink, which I know Anita loves so much.
Everything has its time, I suppose.
Well, sunsets happen to have a lot of pink, so you're just gonna have to deal with it.
I know.
So, yes. The next layer, we're just going to continue down. You want to keep some of your blue intact. Now, ideally, I would want this pink to mix a little with the light blue, but my paint is just drying so fast today. I don't know what it is. It might just be all the lights in here. I don't know. So I'm going to do another layer of the clouds, but this time it's like
what are you
pink.
doing with how is your brush going onto the canvas? Are you pressing down completely down to the edge, or is it just like a light fluffing, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I do, it's such a practice motion that I'm glad you asked because I don't really think about it. So it's as if I'm like making little scoops. So like I am pushing down quickly and then lifting it up. Like,
are you pushing down on the side of it, or are you pushing down on the flat part of it?
On the flat part. So I guess if I put it this way, if I can show you like this, down and then flick, boop,
Okay.
boop.
Cool.
Cool. It's just, yeah, I guess I don't even think about it anymore. Because it's curved, I'm definitely not pushing too hard on it. It's more of like a dabbing, like a light, I don't know. It's so hard to describe.
Yeah. No.
Especially when it's such a practice motion because I've done so many cloud paintings. So it's like, I'm trying to think.
Like to dissect things.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Yeah, that too. So what I do is that because the way that I use the brush, I start with lots of paint on there and I kind of deposit it onto the canvas, and then I go back over what I deposited around the edges, and my brush slowly loses more and more paint because it's depositing it on the canvas as it goes. So the longer I keep dabbing with the brush on the canvas, the drier the brush gets, and the more it'll pick up the paint that is already on the canvas. And then that's what causes blending to happen. So because I keep jabbing the same colors, and this is kind of, you can see how it's darker here because this paint isn't dry yet. And this is almost a dry brush now. So when I poke at it, it's picking up the paint that's already there and it's mixing with the colors that I have here. So, hang on, this might make more sense if I do this. Ugh. Please don't fall. Oh, it works. Okay. So the more I touch it, the more paint is being lifted from underneath and from my excavated brush, right? So like I still have some dark blue there from way back then. So the more I touch it, the more it's going to blend, and it gets lighter and lighter and fuzzier the more I touch it. I still haven't loaded my brush again. Like I did it once at the beginning when I started talking. So that's a technique for blending. I'm gonna go back and grab some more paint and then kind of repeat the process next to it. And now see, like, the paint on my brush is way more pink, right? Because I grabbed it brand new. But I'm gonna keep shaping these clouds in that little circular motion. And it's gonna keep pulling the paint until, like, if I were to take this brush as is right now and put it here, there's almost nothing there. That's how little paint is on my brush when I'm blending. I'm really just kind of playing with the paint that's already on the canvas. So I guess I tend to use, in general, just not very much paint. I definitely paint more with the dry brush. I kind of put the paint on there and then I start, mushing it around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because when I'm painting, it's I like use enough water and paint in it. Like I try to put on as much paint as possible.
Mm-hmm. There are so
really
many.
Have it like super saturated. So I find this incredibly interesting because again, it's a new way to do something that you already know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is great.
Awesome. Maybe you'll find yourself using it in some other technique, because
Oh yeah, for sure. I will.
it's a great way to blend paint that's already on there, and it makes good gradients, and fading from one color to the next is easier with it's easier to do when your brush has less paint on it, and it's like you're physically mixing the paint but on the canvas, right, instead of in your palette. Some people with oil painting, you have to kind of pre-mix your paint on the palette first, because if you over mix it on your canvas, it doesn't dry, it just keeps getting mixed and it turns into mud. So it's not this is not a technique I would use with oil paints very readily. Okay, so my pink bubblegum clouds have a little purple in them, which is totally fine. I'm gonna aim for most of the purple to stay near the top, because what we want to do after this is we're gonna fade to orange, and you do not want to have any blue or purple when we fade to orange. So what I'm gonna suggest is that if your brush still has a ton of purple or blue in it, give it a wash and then make a pink from scratch. This is just if your brush had tons of blue in it, kind of like mine did. I'm just gonna override my blue by just keep adding pink. I'm adding more pink to it so that the bottom layer of my clouds here is solid bubblegummy pink, because we do not want blue when we introduce that orange, because we will get brown, and we do not want a brown sunset. Not today. One thing that's super tricky when you're painting a sunset, by the way, I'm going about halfway, a little lower than halfway down on my canvas at this point, just to let you know. It's like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the top third is like your sky, cloud, and purpley clouds, purpley pink. And then the second third down is mostly solid pink. And then our last third will be our landscape, among other things. But yeah, one tricky thing about, because like everyone likes painting sunsets. I feel like it's one of the most human things to see and want to paint and to want to capture. And the trickiest thing about painting sunsets is that the sky is blue and the sun is yellow. And what happens when you put yellow paint on a blue sky? You get green. And because, you know, when you're mixing colors, that's what you end up with, is like bright green. So that's why I'm very careful to separate the colors between blue, and then we're going to fade over to the magenta, and then magenta is friendly with yellow to make orange. Because if we still had blue in the brush, we would just get a green sky and it would look interesting. It would not look like a sunset. I have made many green sunsets in my career of painting sunsets. Ugh. Oh, I still have some blue left in there. I'm really stubborn. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to beat it out. Drown it with the pink.
Beat the devil out.
Beat the devil out of it.
Yes, Bob Ross.
Yeah.
My boy. Boy Bob.
Bob Ross is the inspiration to the landscape painting for everybody. It's like
I watch his channel on Twitch all the time.
I love watching Bob Ross in the background while I'm like just doing anything really, because his voice is so soothing, and then like he has those little animal breaks sometimes, and then like and if you look down for like 2 minutes and then look back up, you're like, oh, there's an entire mountain scene with snow and like a little bird and a cabin, and I blinked. Like, yeah. He works so quickly. It's incredible. All right. Sweet. Bubblegum clouds. I'm gonna make sure there's no blue on my bottom layer. I mean, if there's a little, no one's gonna die or anything. I can always cover it up. Nice thing about acrylics, it dries quickly, and then you can paint anything on top. It's not like watercolors where you have to save your whites. It's not like oils where you have to wait a week. It's really wonderfully versatile. If you make a mistake, you wait a few minutes, you paint right over it as if nothing ever happened, right? So it's really quite handy. Yeah. And even if it's still wet and you don't want to wait for it to dry, like I went to this one paint night thing and the guy just did a big black mark over it, and then everyone gasped. And then he's like, no, all you have to do, like, because the painting underneath was still wet, was dry, and he did this giant black streak over the painting, and you can actually just wash it off with a damp cloth. If it's acrylic and it's wet on the top and dry underneath, you can just wipe it right off with a damp cloth. I'm not going to demo that because I'm not that... Or your spit, yes. You can use what you got. Use whatever you have. Just kind of lick your finger and, yeah.
It makes it authentic.
It adds some extra, I don't know, a little bit of yourself.
Exactly.
And spit.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put some yellow on my palette. No rush.
I still have a buttload of blue.
Yeah. We're gonna, let me see, we're still gonna use the other colors. There's by no means you should be using them all up. We're gonna be using them again. Oh, yellow. Yes. Yellow is next. This is just a primary cadmium yellow.
Cadmium.
But it's acrylic, so it's not real cadmium, so, you know.
Yeah.
Fake cadmium. Because
And primary
otherwise,
yellow.
yes. Primary yellow is perfect. As long as it's not translucent yellow, because that's where you start getting into trouble, where you'd have to mix it with a bit of white, because yellow by nature is a very transparent color. Mm-hmm. It's not a very strong color. It takes a lot. And you can actually get like a glaze of yellow, and what that does is it just tints things
Patch.
with yellow. But you want something that's more opaque.
I also have this Azo Yellow Deep.
That could work too. Yeah, Azo is good too. I'm gonna.
Which one?
Oh no.
many
You can try mixing it on the edge if you're not sure. Put both of them, like a little dot of each of them. See which one mixes nicely with your red or your magenta, whatever warm color you're using. See if it. Do a little test on the side. Just so you don't use up a bunch and then change your mind.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
see.
the primary yellow is very nice.
Excellent. I need to swap out my reference picture. Actually,
It's not changing water.
that's
It's so weird
true.
To not change
To not be washing your brush or water. Yeah. I suppose it's just how I
I
work.
had that drilled into me. Change your water, Sally. It's filthy. Change your water, Sally. It's filthy. Painting.
I think I was.
I'm
No,
having fun. That's all that matters to me.
You can paint any old way you want to. You don't have to listen to other people's directions on how often you need to wash your brush. You wash your brush whenever you want to, okay? Don't let anyone tell you when to wash your brush. Unless it's at the end of your painting, and then yes, please wash your brush at the end of the painting.
No, no, no.
Because then otherwise I will come after you and be like, that's brush murder. Don't leave acrylic
No.
in your brush. It's almost irreparable. I deposited my brush in the water by accident. But it doesn't matter. I know, I ruined my record. I just tossed it in there while I was grabbing something. That's okay.
normal.
That's habitual. There's
Yeah.
by no means I didn't mean like you can't wash your brush. You don't need to. Okay, so we got our pink, we got our sky that's slowly changing colors, and I couldn't get the next reference image up because as soon as I opened Chrome, the screen was threatening and like freezing. So we're not going to do it. You can see what I'm doing. It's a nice to have, but we don't have to have it. I'm happier not having to reset the whole stream to get the reference image. All right, so I'm going to grab some yellow. I'm going to push it a bit to the side. You can still see my palette cam. It's probably super tiny for you. All right.
It's a good size. It's not bad at all.
Can you sort of see what I'm doing? I'm just making like a little pool of yellow next to the big blob of yellow. And that's going to be like our mixing station. Now, because yellow is so much weaker than every other color, anything we add to yellow is going to react very quickly. And so it's not actually equal parts to make orange. You're not going to say equal part yellow and equal part magenta. You're actually going to take maybe a dot of magenta. Like I have very, very little. It's just a small dot. And then I'm going to mix it next to it and just see how quickly it turns to orange. Super quickly.
Oh, that is a nice orange.
It should be. I hope it is. I'm going to add a little bit more magenta. What exact shade of orange you get is up to you, but as soon as you put it onto the canvas, oh, that was maybe a bit too much. Ugh, I need more yellow. Now I'm just making a mess. That's okay. You'll see once you put it up to the pink how much it blends. If it goes nicely or not. If you need to add more yellow, go ahead. Depending on the magenta you're using, you might need to add a little bit of white if it's too dark. But I'm doing a similar motion again. Let me see, how far down am I going? Let me see. The orange. Yours is very high. Then I'd start at the bottom of yours and add some orange to your bottom of like along the line. Maybe overlap your pink by like an inch or so.
Okay.
Looking at the reference, we're gonna put this orange all the way down to about here. Okay. So I have this nondescript shape here. Again, it's clouds, doesn't matter. They don't have to look a certain way. That's the nice thing about painting clouds is that you know, they can be any shape. So even if you mess up the shape, it's an abstract shape, so it's okay. But we're gonna repeat a similar motion where I grabbed a bunch of orange and then I slowly keep making my little strokes as I travel up, but not too far up. Let me explain this better. Starting in the white area, I have pure orange. And then I work my way up until it starts to meet the pink that we already put down. And then once my orange on my brush meets the pink that's already on the canvas, I'm gonna keep pushing it around in a curved motion, and that's when the orange is gonna start to mix with the pink. Now I still had a little bit of blue in my brush, so I'm getting little spots of, I don't know, this lovely dark greenish brown color. So if that's the case, it just means I didn't get rid of enough blue. And if you find that's happening too much, then either grab another brush or wash your brush really, really well to get all the blue out, because we don't want any blue in this layer. So we're gonna, again, continue all the way across. We're gonna do orange around there, and then it'll be there. And then we will do the sun after that. What time is it? It's almost 8 o'clock. I'm thinking after we do the orange, we will take a few minutes break to let things breathe and dry after we do the sun. Because after we do the sun, then we're going to be layering on the hills and the mountains, and we want those to definitely look like they're way in front of everything else. So right now we're just kind of, excuse me, we're just working the background, and then we let that dry, and then anything we do on top will be like the foreground. Well, it will be the foreground, not like the foreground. I wanted to have music in the background while we painted, but I realized I edit the video so much that it would sound very strange. So feel free to play music in your own backgrounds, because it won't pick up your sound, it'll only pick up mine. There we go. Sometimes it's hard to mix the same color twice in a row if you run out, but a nice thing with the cloud paintings is that you can just pretend it's intentional and have different pockets of different colors. Okay. All the way to the end. If you have darker orange, like if you mix a darker orange after, you can it'll help the layout if you keep it near the bottom. Like if you have a bunch of a color that you just mixed that isn't quite right, maybe it's too dark. For the sake of this painting, we're definitely going from light to dark to the bottom. So if you did mix something that's a bit too dark, you can still use it just closer to the bottom, and then mix a new one that's a bit lighter for your top layers of your sky.
The front's okay, but the side's okay.
They're all gonna be uniquely wonderful in their own way.
Well,
You don't sound convinced.
keep working on it afterward,
Yeah.
like tomorrow or whatever.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And there's nothing saying that you have to be absolutely finished. I almost always touch them up after. They're like, the point for at the end of these classes is kind of like you're left with something that is finished, but it has the potential. You can keep working on it or not. Like I I tend to finish it because 2 hours is not a very long time for a painting. And I try to leave you guys with something that is finished, you know. But if you have a certain preference or you want to add something, or yeah, you're totally encouraged to keep working on it.
It will need
Tidying
tidying up.
up, yeah. And that's totally
That's what I
fine.
did last time. I did it and then I tidied it up and it looked better.
I did the same when we painted the when I did the Christmas lights one. I did a lot of work after it to clean up the bulbs and to make the glow a bit more accurate and that kind of thing. Okay, I had some blue in my brush because I was stubborn and I didn't wash it. So I'm going to mix a bit of this in-between color, an orange with a bit of a more magenta-y orange, just to even this out a bit. And to do that, I'm going to grab some magenta and yellow and then add a little bit of white to mimic that pink color we had. And I'm going to get this almost creamsicle colored orange. Again, this is just because
What I have.
yeah, this is just,
What I'm using dollar store paints.
oh, those, I use them, they have a large variety of ready-made colors that are really nice, and I love using the dollar store paints for painting like crafts when I don't feel like pre-mixing everything, because I only use primary colors when I'm painting. But sometimes when I just want to do like a craft with the kids, or even I have these little doll house wood furniture sets, and I just use the dollar store acrylic paint for that. It's perfect, especially because it's already mixed. It's already like these nice colors. I don't have to mix them.
Well, I have a whole bunch of paint in my house, and I didn't really want to buy more, but I didn't have the right colors.
Ah, yeah. Well, use what you got.
I feel like my clouds are too orange, so I need to add more yellow.
Also, you can try adding a little bit of white, because remember what we did to make this color was we used magenta with white. So if you find that it jumps too quickly to orange, I made on my brush right now is a mixture of magenta, some yellow, and some white, and it kind of helps ease that transition between my orange layer and my pink layer, especially if your orange is too dark. It's just to help blend it a little bit. Again, I made some of it with the white, and then I'm putting it directly onto the canvas and then just keep batting at it until it blends, like brushing, fanning it almost. Actually, if you're finding sometimes just taking, like, put some paint on your canvas and taking an actual separate dry brush and testing the actual dry brush on your canvas could be an interesting technique too, because you get a different method of blending that way. It might help if your brush just has too much paint on it and you're not able to get this dry brush blending effect. You can actually just get a dry brush and try it after. Sometimes using a bigger brush is kind of nice. If I grab this one here. So here, I'll show you real quick. I'm going to grab a color that's really far off. I'm going to grab some white mixed with a bit of orange, and I'm just going to blob it like right here. Okay, so there. It sticks out like a sore thumb, right? If I have my dry brush and I'm pushing it around, like I'm tapping it, and because the paint that's underneath is still a bit wet, it gets blended in. See? So that's one way to use the dry brush. It's almost like you're just sweeping it around, you know? It's like you drop something and then you're like pushing it around. It's very noisy. When I stream and I do this, they're just like, please stop. It can get kind of annoying. But that's the idea. I guess because when I use that technique with my brush actively when I'm painting. I kind of know when my brush is running out of paint, so it's not something I really think about anymore, but it is a dry brush technique, so you can easily grab a different brush, or even like some people smudge it with their fingers or a cloth. Blending is almost, you got to think about it like when you were using like pencils as a kid and you would smudge things that way to shade, which my teachers would yell at me if I ever did, but it's the same idea. It's you're taking the particles that are already on the thing and just spreading them out without adding more on top of it. Just spreading it out. Now that I've worked this to death, we've got a big, smoochy, orange, randomly colored sky. Now, the last thing we're going to do before we take a little break is set the stage for our sun. So the sun is not quite dead center. Like if you were to measure your canvas and find the center, it might be like here-ish, but I'm going to go down a step and say it's right here. Now, I'm going to take, this is fresh paint, right? We just did a whole bunch of stuff to it. So for the sun, it's going to be, it might be a little bit tricky, but we grab white first and try not to blend it in too much. We're going to have the sun just sit right here. If you find it's blending too much with the background too quickly, I know suns aren't white, bear with me here. Yellow is not going to show up brightly on any background except for white. So when you want something and you're layering your paint and you want yellow to really show up, you're going to do it in white first. So we're going to do our sun in white and we're going to leave it, we're going to let it dry for a bit, take our little break. And I'm not doing a full circle. I'm doing kind of like a little more than a half circle, almost like a, what is it, a waxing gibbous moon? Not quite full. It's kind of just hanging out there like that. So we have it in white so that later on after this dries, we're going to put yellow on top of it and it's really going to shine. I've tried and tried. You can't paint straight up yellow unless your yellow is a really opaque and strong yellow. It's not going to show over anything. Like you can try painting yellow on this dark blue, it'll just show as green. So do it white, we'll take a break, and then we'll put yellow on it after. Okay, wash your brush before the break. Don't let it sit in the water like I do, and then it damages the brushes actually. Your brush will absorb, especially if it's a wooden handled brush with the metal clamp, like the metal, there's a word for that thing, I just don't remember what it's called. What's annoying about it is that the wooden handle will absorb the water through this metal thing, and it expands, because wood expands when it gets wet. It opens up the metal over time and all your bristles fall out. So if you keep your brushes for a long time, well, you can keep them for years and years. You can, this brush here is at least 5 or 6 years old, and I've used it for oils and acrylics, but I take really good care of it. So yeah, just don't leave your brushes in the water. Also, when you leave your brushes in the water in your jar or whatever container you have, what it does is it's going to take the shape, however heavy, like if your brush is sitting in a container of water, it has a little bit of weight to it, and it'll go, like this at the bottom of your jar. And if you leave it there overnight, you take your brush out, it'll permanently be bent, especially if it's a synthetic fiber. So don't leave them in there. That being said, I've left them in there all the time, but it's a slow...
Try not to.
Try not to, yeah, just try not to. Like, it's hard to get it back to normal, if at all possible. You're more likely to get them back to normal if they're a natural fiber, but the synthetic ones, it's like plastic, and it's really hard to get it back. So wash your brushes after you're done your sun, and then we will start back up again in about, I'll say 15 minutes. That should be enough time for it to dry. Feel free to, if you want, you can mute and turn off your video, walk around, whatever, or I'm just going to stay here. But I won't start teaching any other steps until 8:25.
I'm gonna get a snack. I'll be back.
Get a snack, get a snack. Be right back, get a snack. I'm just going to sit here and drink my beer.
I'm just gonna work on this guy just a little bit more because I'm really unhappy.
It might just be the colors are not ones that normally speak to you, eh?
Yeah, that's my problem. So I need to push the envelope. I need to challenge myself and just work with it and get used to the.
Embrace the
these
discomfort.
colors. It's just very strange. I'm like, why are cool colors and warm colors together? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why? Why, Mama, hold me?
Right? This is so weird.
Wrong.
When we add the yeah, it's a good time. You're learning. You're expanding your horizons.
I love it.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, not sorry, pun intended.
It's a little better. A little less bad.
A little less bad. It looks great from here, okay? I have to say, like, it looks really cool from here. Although I know that webcams tend to flatter paintings for whatever
They really
reason.
do.
They
It's
do.
amazing. I'll be like looking at this and I look and I'm like, whoa, that's a really cool painting. Why does it not look like that there?
When I take like preview images of paintings, well, especially like, yeah, anything, I'm just like, oh, it looks so good on Instagram, and then I look at it in person, I'm like, ugh. It's like, it's not bad, but it's just not the same. Just not the same.
So I think what I'm gonna do for this, because you have like the cacti, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, where are the how many cacti are we going to be doing?
As many as your little heart desires.
Okay. Yeah, it's good just so I can see the piece, because I'm gonna be doing more background, I think, down here, and I think what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna make like a green iguana, like
Ooh.
down in the bottom afterwards.
Okay. I can send you the close up of the final, because it's not working on my messenger. It's it crashes my computer every time I tried, so I will just send it to you and you can look at it. There it is, right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish. It's so much messier in this little thumbnail than it is here, but
Nice.
tis.
Cool. Oh, lots of red. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the hills will be mostly just pure magenta or red. We're not going to be mixing it to make the hills. And it'll, because we use the same red in the sky, when we do the hills with just the pure red, it connects them, right? So that's why, like, I try to stress for people not to use too many pre-mixed colors. Like, if they just used a pre-mixed orange and then did a pure pre-mixed red out of the bottle, like, they wouldn't match, you know? But because I use the same one for the background and the hills, they played more nicely together.
So I definitely need more orange here. I swear I'm not a perfectionist.
I don't believe you.
I swear. Oh god, it's terrible.
Think of these as practice paintings, okay? It's not like
It must be perfect.
it's more about getting to sit down and paint, not so much what you make after. Unless I think Jade is giving hers away as a gift or something, so she has to make hers perfect. I'm joking. I'm kidding.
Are you now?
The class itself is a gift.
Oh,
We're both doing our own.
oh, perfect. The gift of art time.
Oh,
It's a good one. It's a gift I don't give to myself often enough. I tend to just like, I don't schedule enough time to paint actually. It's something I need to just, I'm almost always painting like either in a class or on stream, and then it's there. I have very little painting time to myself. I need to work on that. I seem to be out of yellow, so I'm gonna restock my yellow. Actually, it would be a good opportunity for me to clean my water. It's looking kind of murky. I'll be right back.
Beat the devil out. All right.
Yeah, my sink is not very far from my microphone, so. Washing spoons. Is that your easel or like a dog or something? What does that sound?
Oh, it's my chair.
Oh, it's your chair. I was like, is there a dog in there?
I need new bearings for my front wheels,
Yeah.
and I can't get them till Wednesday.
Oh man.
Schedule
That's
was
hard.
so hard. So I squeak,
That's okay.
and
I don't-
apologize for squeaking.
I don't mind the squeaking. I was just curious as to where it was coming from. It almost sounded like a dog. Like a little puppy whining in the background.
Not even myself.
Oh no. Yeah.
No, it's mine looks relatively like yours.
Oh, excellent. I mean, that's it's not even the goal. The goal is for you to be happy with it. So.
Pretty happy. Well, yeah. My goal
So
was
far,
to
so
have it
good.
look somewhat like yours.
Well, in that case, if it looks somewhat like mine, then you're doing great.
And I will probably work on it again tomorrow.
Yeah. See what I would love to see what it ends up turning into. I love seeing them afterwards because they're all the same but different.
Yeah, I still haven't. I think I'm gonna work on the one from the last time tomorrow on the stream.
Oh yeah, you still have more that you're adding to it?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's pretty nice. Like, I don't
It
really need
is.
to.
It's been nice for like 3 sessions now, but
Again, perfectionism is it's not a good thing. But I just see all the little imperfections and I see where I can fix. So I want to fix it a little more. I don't know what I want to do on stage tomorrow. I'm very confused because I just finished like 3 different paintings that I've been working on for a while, and it just it feels I'm almost sad. 'Cause I don't-
Oh, cause you're finished working on them. You finished Ryan's piece, like officially?
Yeah, I finished my piece officially.
That's exciting.
I know. And you're going to be able to see it in the flesh, maybe?
I hope so.
Yes. Great.
Mhm.
just snowboarding though.
Oh, it was great. I was I went. Yeah, it's just gonna be a Friday thing. Yeah, I'm just gonna go every Friday until my pass runs out. Because I mean, Brad got me the pass for Christmas, and I couldn't use it at all. I think I already told you guys, yeah, like, because the hill wasn't open until January or like the last week of December, but I couldn't go because of something. Well, COVID too, but I think it was because we were doing like a in-family lockdown because we were seeing my parents over Christmas, so we didn't do very much of anything, so we didn't want to compromise that because my mom's really high risk. So for a little while, I couldn't go, and then everything was locked down, and no one in Ontario was allowed to Quebec at all, so I couldn't go in January. And then February was almost over, and then things opened up again. So Brad's like, just go as often as you can until the pass is gone. Because, like, what else are you going to do? I haven't asked the Hill yet if they would have reimbursed me or whatever. I was just like, no, I'll use it as much as I can. So now I just dedicated all Fridays to snowboarding, which is terrifying. To lose an entire work day forever. Like, until April, I have no Fridays. But I'm trying to do, like, I squeeze in other errands on Fridays now too. Like if I have to do shopping or like I picked up my Wallach's order on Friday. I just make sure anything that I need to do out is on Fridays. But no, this past yesterday, was it? Yeah, it was yesterday. Is today Saturday? Oh my goodness! Wow. Yeah. It was gorgeous. Yeah, it was really nice out. It was sunny and it wasn't too cold. I actually overheated. I had to go back to my car and like take off a bunch of layers and then go back out. And I'm not crazy sore or tired today, which means I'm getting stronger, which is a great feeling because last time it took me like 3 days to recover last time. But I think it was also because I had like, while I was snowboarding, that's when like my period hit and it was like double whammy, sore from snowboarding and all the life drained out of me, literally. So that's probably the main reason why I was dead tired for 3 days. But this time it was fine. I went yesterday and today I woke up and I didn't feel like, I tentatively, moved. Am I sore? No?
Every morning.
Aww.
Every morning. I cannot get out of my bed without cracking my shoulders now.
Oh, that's a pain. It sounds like a real pain. Okay, this is...
Set my alarm and it takes me 10 minutes to get out of my bed.
I can sympathize with that. That's rough.
Stop touching it.
No, I need to see if it's dry. It
No, I
is
said
dry.
I stopped touching
Oh,
mine.
you stopped touching yours. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry. You just don't look at it. It doesn't have to be perfectly dry, actually. It just needs to be, like, not completely soaked. So, I'm going to grab my small... I guess it's not 8:25 yet, but whatever. Are you guys ready to continue painting? Thumbs up? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, good. All right, I'm going to grab a smaller brush because we're going to do some little doodly things. The sun. So I want you to grab pure yellow. I'm just using my round brush. It's not flat. It's round. And it comes to a point. It's a round brush. And that's mostly just because I want to control the size. This is a size 6. But it's like big-ish. It's like my pinky. Basically, the only reason I chose, well, I mean, it's just because I want to be a little more accurate. I don't want to mess up my sun. That's all. I'm putting yellow paint directly on top of the white. And if your white wasn't dry yet, that's okay. Just be a bit gentle with it. You're just going to layer the yellow on top. And this will just make sure that your sun actually looks yellow and not too see-through. Yay, it's a yellow sun now. Now to make it look like it's glowing, or emitting all of its beautiful sunlight, I'm gonna grab more yellow and mix it with a tiny little bit of orange on the side of my palette here. Same brush. I didn't wash it. I'm still using the round one. And I'm going to work a little bit outside of the sun. Now you'll see that like it's definitely not as bright as what we painted on the white. And I'm just kind of doing an arc around the sun with this yellowy orange. And it'll just help the sun look a little more like it's actually shining amidst these clouds. I'm going pretty close to the edge of my of the actual border for the sun, but I'm trying not to blend it or anything. I still want to keep that that shape defined there. It's just to make the sun shine a bit brighter. Sometimes a lot of the actual like the illusion of something glowing. How did blue get in there? Oh no. Wipe it off. We should have no blue right now.
I know, I don't understand. I don't like where? How?
Lick it.
I already licked it. I licked it. Okay.
I don't want to condone eating your paints, you guys. Just,
But for art's sake.
But for in an emergency. As far as how wide I'm going outside of the sun, I'd say it's like half the diameter of this little shape here. I'm going out that much. And again, I would use actual measurements, but I think all of our canvases are different sizes, so it doesn't really, equate. But like I'd say roughly the little halo of yellow around my sun is about 1 inch wide. But my whole sun is 2 inches, maybe 3 inches wide.
Okay, yeah, mine's definitely like 2.5.
Yeah. When I'm teaching a large class in person and I'm the one who bought their canvases, I can actually use measurements a lot more. I can be like, exactly 15 centimeters for the left, we're gonna make a flower. So like, it's a lot more precise because I control all the other variables. All right, so now our little sun has got this happy little halo around him. He's like, I'm shining so bright. Look how bright I'm shining. Sweet. All right. Beautiful. That's also something you can play with after if you want to add more shininess or... Whoa, that's a bit too much. That's okay. Because above the sun, kind of like on the painting here and up, we're not changing very much after. The rest of the painting we're mostly adding to the bottom third. So if you decide that you want to change stuff later on, you are totally free to do so because it won't affect the layout overall. So you can mess around in the sky, add some details to your clouds, all that kind of stuff. All right, I'm going to stop messing with this and do the next step. So I'm going to wash the same brush, the small pointed round. I'm washing it off, and then I'm going to grab magenta, pure and sweet. Or red, if you have red. I mean,
Which one's
whatever warm color you have been using the whole time. I don't know if some of you guys are using magenta, some of you guys might be using red. So if you had used red in your clouds, then grab red. But if you've been using magenta, then grab magenta. Is what I meant to say. We're going to outline our hills, our first set of hills. So I'm going to bring a sample here for you guys to see. All right. So essentially, we're going to be doing this bump, and it's like this wonderful curve that's cradling the sun. There are 3 done in magenta. And then after that, we're going to do the ones that are right up in the foreground. But for now, we're going to do these guys here. And I will be using my pointed brush and just pure magenta, like I said, starting. All right, so as far as where to start the hill, it's going to be around level. Like if you put a straight line as a horizon for your sun, that'd be around where we start. I'm just going to do a little dot there. Well, you can barely see that. Let's zoom in a bit. Ooh. You don't need to see my face. You just look at the painting. There we go. Might help with the measurements from here on out. Okay. There's a dot. Sometimes when we're doing shapes and I'm dictating a drawing shape, it can be really tricky. So what I like to do is I let you guys know where one part starts, and then the bump goes a bit above the sun. So we're going to do the apex of that curve right here. That's the top. And the bottom will be about to the left of the sun, slightly lower. Okay, so we have 3 dots. And now it's easy, we just connect the dots. So start always smaller than you think you're going to need, because you can always, because this is a silhouette of a hill, you can always add more to the outside of it, right? So you're better off starting smaller than you think it'll be and then adding if you need to. So like I'm being a little bit modest with the lines, and if I think it can be a bit taller, then I can always add after and expand that silhouette. But I start small just because you don't always know if you're gonna like it. So, and then the hill underneath it is gonna be, and don't rush to fill it all in. We're gonna do a little curve instead. But if you filled it all in, that's okay.
Oh, I kind of did a curve at the bottom already. So that.
Yeah, just a little curve on the bottom. So it kind of looks like a volcano or something right now. If your round brush is like way too small, you can feel free to switch it up and go back to your larger brush to fill in your hill. Because depending on your brushes, it may or may not be way too big or small for this task. I like to use the pointed one when I'm doing any kind of drawing, just because it's a bit more accurate and predictable. But if I'm filling in a large piece, you can always switch it up and go back to your big brush because it's faster. Right, so that's one.
I'm a big fan of the chiseled brushes.
Chiseled brushes are really nice. They kind of have the best of both worlds, where you can shape and fill, and it's like that shape really helps.
Paint the sides, paint the sides.
We are reminded to paint the sides. I think I mostly did. Let me see. No, never mind. Don't look. Don't look at my sides. I didn't paint them. Milo, are you whining? Did you want to say hi? You want to come say hi?
Milo.
Oh. No, studio cat. You don't want to get paint on your fur. Oh, hello. Here she is. Want to sit on my lap? You gonna stay there? You gonna watch? What are you gonna do? You're just gonna stand. All right, that's new. My lap isn't comfy. When I do the classes, I like to sit on a stool instead of my usual office chair, because the office chair is really noisy when I'm moving around and stuff. And I'm used to just sitting, I don't know. When I paint, I like to sit on a stool. If I get too comfy, I might fall asleep. All right, so for the second set of bumps, we're gonna have them kind of cradling the sun. So I'm gonna start around near the bottom third of the first hill we did. That'll be the base. I'm gonna make it slightly shorter than the first hill, so the top will still be a little above the sun, maybe equal around there. And then it's gonna come down and just kind of hold the sun like that. So I have a little curve. So I have my first dot, the top, a little curve, and this is just to kind of sketch it out. And then the top of the next hill is a little lower than the sun. And it's about, I'd say the width because we haven't measured the right-hand side yet. So the left-hand side is just the whatever width you have between your first hill. Oops, I just painted my finger. And the sun. And then the second one is about the same width. So I'm going to go up and then back down around the same height. So let's just sketch it out, and then you can trace it. Trace it out and follow those dots. Whoa. Milo wants all the love. Yes, you do, kitty. And these ones you can also fill in, and I have it a bit flatter here. So the bottom of these hills is around about an inch underneath the sun, but it's pretty straight because at this point it's trying to mimic a bit of a horizon. And later on we're going to add like a bit of a triangle shape of like, you know, the path to the, you know, the path into the sunset. But for now we're just going to fill it out pretty flat and then complete that shape like that. I like to do the boundaries first because then you know that, okay, I get to fill all that in, fill all that in, fill all that in, and it looks like a little face. But I do the boundaries first just so I know. It's like coloring in the lines with a coloring book. You do your outlines first and then it's not as scary. You know, it's easier. If you can see the boundaries, it's easier. Milo is really, she's just like, I'm going to zoom out. You guys can see she's just perched like right there. Hi guys, just going to watch you paint.
Aww.
She's just on my lap.
Cutie.
Just hanging out. She's like the Sphinx.
Yes,
If I move my
the dead
knees,
hat.
she's just like, oh, cats.
So cute. I love cats.
That's where she sits when I paint.
Can't wait.
Aw.
Wait.
Cats are the best studio
Getting
pets.
Yes. As soon as we move to a new place. So
Oh,
that's exciting.
It's
Yeah,
very
we have to
exciting.
move first.
right.
But after that.
And find a place that, you know, likes cats.
Oh, yeah.
Cats are pretty, usually accepted in a lot of different, more than dogs, I'd say.
Well, now they have this restriction where it's like the dog has to be only like 30 pounds.
Oh,
That's ridiculous.
that is strange that they limit it by weight. Like, your dog
Co-op
must
does
have,
that.
yeah.
The co-op does that too. Only thing is, if you already had a dog, well, then
Grandfathered? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to get rid of your dog. But any new people
Mm-hmm.
that move in, although no one's moving at the moment.
Yeah, it's not a popular time for people to be moving around.
My brother works for a moving company and not doing very well. My brother-in-law works for the airlines and he's not doing that well either.
Yeah, anything that involves moving around is suffering right now for sure.
Are we going all the way across?
Nah. We're gonna change colors before we go on that hill. So I'm grabbing, once you're finished these 3 lovely lumps, we're going to mix an intensely dark purple. And that will just be pure magenta with your ultramarine blue. And you might have to revive your ultramarine blue if it's been sitting on your palette and dried up a bit. So just keep that in mind. If it's dried up, then just grab a bit more. But ultramarine is by nature very, very dark. And if you mix magenta with it, the purple that it makes is almost like black, but it does have this wonderful like undertone of this a really rich purple. It's very dark, but that's what we want. I'd say it's definitely about half. On my palette cam, it's probably just going to look like one dark blob. You're not going to see it very well, but if I were to do it just straight up on this here, you can almost see it, like on the edges you can see it's purple. like that. So with this, you might actually want to use, oh, bye Milo. You might want to use your bigger brush for this, but I'm gonna outline it first. And we've kind of already made our outline here, so using the dark purple, the ultramarine with the magenta, I'm outlining the first hill, like that. And I'm gonna make it go lower, and this is gonna kind of hold the scene here, and it's gonna mirror on the other side. So you might have a bit of a white spot in the middle. That's okay. Mine has a bit of a gap there. We'll fill it in later. I'm just focusing on making the big hill on the left. It comes down, and then it's gonna go back up again on the right. As far as where, I'll figure that out. I definitely have my hill on the right. It's kind of in the middle of the height of these two on the left side. So it's like, if I split this in half, it's around here. It's about there-ish. Again, it doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure that it's sort of symmetrical, just to keep it balanced. And because this side is so much darker, dark colors are a lot heavier. They pull the eye down a lot more than lighter colors do. So that's why this hill is a bit higher, because it's a lighter color, and this one's in the middle, so I have it not quite as high. I don't want it to be too heavy. So I'm going to curve this back up. It kind of clips the edge of one of the hills that we did. That. So it's symmetrical, but it's not perfectly symmetrical. So if it were perfectly symmetrical, it would look weird to the eye. It would be like, oh, it's a giant mirror image, you know? It might not look very natural. So I try to make it symmetrical, but still organic looking. You know, you don't want it to be too perfect. So just a little bit. And then fill it in. You might have to mix a whole whack load of purple for that. And I might actually switch over to my other brush, because this might be a bit tedious filling this in with the teeny tiny brush. Might take a while, so I'm going to swap it out. Mix a whole bunch of this purple. Oh yeah, way faster. You might notice that, oh yeah, we definitely end up using a lot of that ultramarine. Oh no, what's nice is that it's going to, it frames the painting. It starts off dark, right? And then goes light, lighter, lighter, and then gets anchored down again by the hills at the bottom. And that's what makes the composition work in this piece. Otherwise your eye would just kind of fall off. It needs a place to rest. Yeah, you might want to grab your big brush for this. I'm repeatedly mixing more and more of this purple. I should have just mixed a whole bunch of it to start. There we go. That might be a bit easier. Now, if your purple is super different where it overlaps the orange, as opposed to where it overlaps the white, you might just need to layer on more of it on the bottom where the white was. Because here I can kind of see the orange underneath on my hill here, and then the bottom of it is a bit lighter, so I just have to layer on a bit more purple, sorry, and so that it covers it up evenly.
So we're doing the whole bottom, all this purpley color.
Yes, yes we are. And we get to add paint your sides, paint your sides. Okay, I'm doing it.
I haven't done it for a little while.
Actually, yeah, this side, the side closer to me is more painted because I can see it. I think just by that visual reminder, seeing the side of my painting on the side closest to me. But on the left-hand side, that's where I'm forgetting all the time. So thanks for the reminder.
I think it's gonna end up one solid color at some point.
Your entire painting?
No, just the sides.
Just the sides, yeah. There we go. This massive purple hill. Sometimes it might feel like way too much when you're really up close to the painting and you're working on it, but when you step back, you'll be like, oh, okay, it makes sense. Or at least it should. If it doesn't, then, I apologize. It looked good in the sample, okay, guys? My first time painting it, it was great.
We watched you do it.
Yes, you did. Yeah, I did the sample on Twitch, yeah.
You did it on Twitch.
Oh, Twitch.
I sure did. I like to use my Twitch time for work painting stuff. It's a good time to get things done.
See, my sides may end up this purple color.
Mm.
I like
Well,
it.
it is a nice one.
Because I have almost given up on it. Well, actually, the sides are not that bad. I haven't even focused on them.
The hills are alive. Sound of purple.
La, la, la. So once you're finished coloring, painting, filling in your hills, I'm taking a little smidge of that super dark purple and adding it to some magenta. So it's like this, I'm making like this, so this is the pure magenta, right?
You get crimson.
Am I making crimson?
Sounds like it.
Well, I'm kind of mixing these two colors here because that's what we're doing here. So this is really linear and it doesn't look very natural. It's like this little semi-ellipse shape here. It's a hole. We need to fill it. And because what I'm making essentially is a color to fill in halfway between this hill and that hill, so I'm mixing the colors on my palette here. So it's mostly magenta with a touch of the dark purple. So when I compare it on the canvas, it should be somewhere in between. Can you see that? It's probably not like super obvious, but it should be lighter than your hill.
More red than blue.
Exactly. So it should be lighter than the top hills. Lighter than the bottom hill, but darker than the top, because we're making it transition there. So in my sample, I kind of have it going into, there's going to be a rough shape of like a triangle, but it's not, I don't want it to be super linear. I don't want it to be like straight up a triangle. So what I'm going to start by doing is filling in the bottom half of this, it's a bit dark. Kind of the bottom of this bowl shape with this new color. It's like I'm filling it slowly with water almost.
Fill the bowl with water.
And then instead of filling it all the way to these edges out here, I'm kind of making it more and more narrow as I get closer to the sun. It's almost like I'm building a pyramid and each level is slightly narrower as it approaches the sun. So eventually it'll look like it's almost like a path between the mountains. But I'm not going all the way up to the sun. It's kind of like it stops around there. Okay, so this is where the directions get a little bit more abstract. But we have our medium-ish kind of purple color. And it looks kind of like a path. It almost looks like another hill. But to prevent it from looking like a total other hill, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab pure magenta and kind of, I'm going to do some back and forth lines. I'm kind of blending it. I'm blending it between the path and the mountain, but I want to keep the motion horizontal, and that's because I want all the brush strokes to mimic the horizon line, because the further you get in the distance, the more it's kind of like when you're painting water flat on the horizon, and if I were to paint it this way up and down vertically, it would ruin that illusion. So I'm gonna, that way any brush strokes I have are going to mimic the horizon line. And at this point I'm trying to get a color. Right now on my brush I'm using a color that's closer to this hill here. It's almost pure magenta, and I'm kind of filling in around that that middle triangle shape.
What color was mixed for the like reddish purple that you used?
The reddish purple was, I took my brush that was still pure purple, and then I added it to a small piece of pure magenta. So like Sally said, it's mostly magenta with a touch of purple.
Okay.
So it ends up being like kind of something in between, but definitely more on the magenta side.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. This is probably the trickiest part. After this, it's just cacti and stars. This part is what is basically simulating that horizon line, and on the edges, I'm trying to make it a little blurry because it's kind of going off into the distance, right? So you don't want it to be too linear. The hills can have a sharp contrast to them because they're, you know, the actual shadows being cast, but like this area is kind of tricky. But really it can be a bit blurry, and that's gonna have some cacti on top of it. We're just setting the stage for the flora. Okay. And again, as long as you keep your brush strokes mostly horizontal, you're gonna have a space to level the eye down. It won't be jumping up all over the place. So I'm adding some really light strokes just to mimic that horizon line. It's kind of muddy, but it's kind of like the clouds, where it's okay if it's a bit messy or abstract, because again, we're setting the stage for our cacti.
The real stars of the show.
Exactly.
No cacti babes.
Mm-hmm. My palette is looking really cool. It's got this like color wheel effect going on. Milo. Milo got stuck in the basement last night. Ugh. We have a cat door for the main basement door, like between the main floor and the basement there's a cat door, but then there's we have like a spare fridge down there, and I was going down to grab some drinks to bring them up to the upstairs fridge, and I didn't know that she had followed me. So like this morning when I came downstairs at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and I heard a meow, but it sounded so far away, and I was just like, where are you? And I found her, and man, was she ever pissed. She had been locked up in the in like the fridge area basement. I don't know, but I'm really impressed. Like, she didn't pee or anything. She's very ladylike. Our other cat who passed away, the male, he would have peed everywhere. Like, if he was pissed off, like, he would have just been like, you locked me in here, you're gonna pay, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Milo is, I don't know, she'll hold it in until I open the door, the poor thing. But she's been a little needier than usual as a result today. Hence her constant meowing. She's like, pay attention to me. You owe it to me. You ignored me. Alright, I'm gonna put away the big brush. I don't think we're gonna use it again. Was I using the big brush? Yeah. That's right. And the little brush we're gonna use to make some cacti. Now I did say, actually we might use the big brush again. Whatever, it's okay.
Well, too late. It's
Too late, it's gone. You put it away, it's washed, it's done.
no more. Sorry.
I was just looking at the sample piece I have. I darkened the top of the sky by adding purple up there. I used the same purple that's down
Oh,
here.
as the base, as
At the
base.
very that's the very top of the sky. But that will do last if you want to really darken it. Depending on your ultramarine, it might be really dark already up there. I just wanted to add something that would really contrast for those stars. Okay, so I'm switching to my smaller brush again to do the cacti. And we're going to try to mix up that really dark purple, same color as our darkest hills.
Same dark.
Milo. Yeah, the same dark purple. I think in the sample I might have used black, but I can't really tell if it's black or if I
It
just
looks
used
like-
the same
It
purple.
looks like black.
It looks like black, but
It's black.
But wait a minute. I'm looking down at the very bottom left-hand corner, and it looks purpley. So I think it is the purple.
Well, I think it's black.
I might have used black, but you know what? Depending on how dark you can get your purple. I don't want the cacti to be, it's this layer here is all one silhouette. And the cacti, when they're up against this color up here, will probably look black. If you would like it darker, you can totally add black. Let's just try it with the purple for now, and if you want to make it even darker, then you can. So we'll start off with the same dark purple. And the first cacti will just be super, super simple. It's just your round brush, you push it down here and you drag it, and it's done. Looks like that's it, you're done. The painting's done. I just had one little simple one there, and then I had a taller one come up. Now the trick with adding foreground elements is that you want them to go above some of the background pieces, because if you ended up putting everything underneath here, they would look like really microscopic. So it would look kind of awkward to the eye, because technically when you're doing a landscape, you know how sometimes you have a painting with grass and the grass is like way up here because it's super close up, right? So the closer things are to you, the higher they're going to be, and the further away, the smaller they are towards the vanishing point in the center. So for our cacti, they're not actually giant, but I'm adding them so that they're taller than the hills in the background and taller than the sun. It helps frame the painting, and it also makes sense in perspective. So I have two here for now, and now I'm going to mirror them with the two on the right hand side. And for that, it's kind of in the middle. Again, start smaller, and then you can always thicken them up afterwards. Okay, so the nice thing about cacti, they're very regular size. They're not like trees where they branch out and they have to be super thick on the bottom and thin at the edges. They're pretty stick-like, very simple. So I have one main.
Big boy.
Yeah, and then I branch off, do a smaller one here. And my brush, it's a rounded brush, so I'm pressing really lightly, but it's automatically the width of my brush. So if you need to grab a smaller brush, please do. It's more comfortable to grab a brush where the heart, the point where I'm pressing the hardest is actually the ideal shape for the cacti, for this one anyway. So feel free to grab a smaller one if you need to. I have a branch on the right hand side and then one on the lower left hand side down here. There. And now those are the big guys. Next ones are going to be smaller. So I have one to the left, just one straight line. If you need to, what I do to get these really sharp outlines on my brush, I dip my brush in some water. So this is probably the only time I do use water, actually. It's when I'm making sharp edges on shapes. So I dip my brush in water and then I dip it back in the palette, and I'll kind of go back and forth until I have a paint that's definitely a little more liquidy, because that way when I drag it across the canvas, it's a bit of a sharper shape. Like that. It's a bit of a trick to get your edges really, really clean, is to keep your brush really wet. And not loaded with a ton of paint either. Wet, but you know, wet with paint, but not clumpy or dripping, you know? You're just, and if you really want to refine that shape, you just roll your brush on your palette a bit with some water in the paint, and then you'll get a nice even spread of paint there. I'm gonna add another one to the right, to the right of this one that we did on the left. So just one bump here. Yes, Milo, I know. My middle bump is gonna come right around between the two hills here. And the slower you go, the more the bristles will actually fill all of the gaps. So going slowly with the wet brush also helps make those sharp lines. And if you don't have the sharp lines, you can get a smaller brush. It might help just to do those edges. Okay, and then little branch on the right.
More than a second.
I guess it's more like an arm than a branch, but you know.
No.
There.
I drank the rest of the can.
Okay. So in my sample piece, I mostly have a bunch of little guys littering the bottom. To be honest, in my sample piece, it's kind of abstract. I don't have it really defined. They kind of look almost like they could be grass. And then I have a few in the very background here. But I'll do my best to mimic it, just so that it's true to the reference. But I have a few where it's like, it could be grass, it could be more little cacti. I guess I'll make them, I don't know, a bit of both. You can take a smaller brush and add more detailed bristles of, bristles, I don't know. Blades of grass, even. Like dried grass. It's the desert, so it's probably not super lush or anything, but let me grab a teeny tiny chisel. I have way too.
Favorite.
Yeah, chisels are fun. This is like a, I don't know what size it is. Size 6 again, apparently.
Mine's a quarter.
That should work. I'm adding just little, I don't know, grassy things.
Grassy thing sticking up.
Yeah, on the bottom hill. It's just to add a little bit of texture. And then I had a small little clump of cacti super far in the distance, like over here underneath the sun to the left. And it's almost like a little cluster of cacti that could be really far away. Like that. They're just 3 little things sticking up, and then a small horizontal line to support them in the distance. It's almost like another hill, but sorry, it's probably really hard for you guys to see it. It's so far away. Ooh. And really, like the most eye-catching elements are really like, oh, this spot, it's a sunset, and you know, like it's these little spots here. You don't end up even seeing very much of like a lot of the other parts. So it's always in the last few details that draw people's eye, which sometimes can be very frustrating because maybe you spent, you know, like 20 hours working on other stuff that no one ever even notices except for you.
Yeah. Yes, that was something that Melissa was saying. I showed her Ryan's piece, and she's like, "You could have stopped, I don't know, like 20 hours ago, and I would have thought that it was finished. But now, like, I'm looking at it, and it's like, oh, those little white lines, like they really just frame the piece, and it really is like the little details at the very end that make the piece."
Yeah, the stuff you do, the very last few pieces, details, often end up taking the show. You know, it's like, oh, I'm glad I added those things. So to make it a bit closer to my reference, I still have that same dark purple that I did all the cacti with, and you can tell they look black. Up against the orange, they almost do look black. So if you'd like it to be even darker, you can overlay maybe another layer in black. But for now, I'm taking the purple with my smaller brush, and I'm doing the top 2 inches or so. I'm trying to follow the same shape of the clouds, and I'm leaving at least an inch above the clouds. And this, it makes the top of the sky a little darker. It frames it. I'm making the bottom of this shape like almost as if I'm adding another layer of clouds, but in reverse. Like I'm carving out what I leave behind ends up being the shape of clouds.
That's a good describing.
Yeah, so I'm kind of doing negative space clouds in a way. And this will just make a nicer backdrop for our stars to show up a little better. And again, it's like when you look up into sunset sky, you don't see a ton of stars, so it's going to be really hard for me personally not to just put a million in there, because that's my favorite part, is adding stars at the end of my painting. Most of my paintings have glowy lights in them, or stars, I suppose. I just can't help myself.
So you don't think in the middle of the desert that there's lots of stars?
Oh, I think there are for sure, but maybe not at the same time as a sunset.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So possibly I want to add them, but I'm going to keep them at the very, very, very top.
We went stargazing in Egypt. Crazy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's like they have you stay at like a camp for a bit. You have like dinner and tea until the sun's gone down, and it's just like a whole blank.
Wow.
It's insane.
That's definitely on my list of places that I want to go. Like, I really want to go to Egypt. Just like,
Yeah,
it's magical, really.
yeah, it's pretty insane. Like the pyramids. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, it's crazy. I thought, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's a commercial thing, you know, McDonald's and that stuff and all that stuff. But you just can't explain the size.
Yeah.
Like one block was taller than me, so it's like, how do you?
Holy, really?
Yeah. I stood next to one, I was like, what? Like, oh.
Wow. That's nuts.
Yeah, and I'm not tall. So it's probably like, I'm 5 foot. They're probably like 6 foot tall.
Okay, but still,
And
those
then-
are big blocks. Wow.
Right? And then there's a whole pyramid of these 6 foot tall. Yeah.
Oh, that's nuts.
It's indescribably tall.
That's awesome. So definitely worth it to go.
Yes. Definitely. You need a good tour guide so you don't get like scammed.
Of course.
There's a lot of scams. I got scammed by a security, like police officer or whatever. Cause
Really?
they,
Oh,
yeah,
assholes.
we basically asked where to find an ATM. Took us to the ATM and then said, can you give me the money?
Oh,
As the tip. I was like, oh, okay, got my money. Oh. And it turns out there's like the security, and then there's like tourism police who look after the tourists. I didn't know that until afterwards. So there's like I could have said to him, I'll ring the tourist police, and apparently he would have run away.
Oh no. Oh, now you know.
Yeah, right.
So you're.
I don't know if I would say that.
I could definitely say that.
Yeah. Maybe not. Like I don't know. He was right there, and I was at the H camp. You could have my money. Don't kill me.
Right? I'd rather. Yeah, I don't know.
But other than that, it was really it's worth it.
Real quick, I grabbed a different brush and I'm just putting in stars at the very top where I did the dark purple. I didn't wait for it to dry or anything, but when you kind of dollop stars on, it's almost as if you're just dropping the paint on the canvas. You're not forcing it in. So when I do, yeah, there's no smushing happening here. So it's just kind of like a blip, and I drop them off wherever. And that's pretty much the last, yeah, I'd say that's the last step. We're pretty good on time. It's 9:11. Okay. I definitely have to not add too many. I get so carried away. Like, oh, I want to put so many stars in.
Now, when you're putting down your stars, do you do it in triangular styles? So it's always
like constellations?
Yeah.
No.
I try to
Constellations.
I don't think about real constellations, but I do try to cluster them in a way that would be mimicking it. Like I try not to make it look like snow. I try not to make it look too regular. But I don't actually have any constellations memorized. I don't know any of them by heart or anything. So I just kind of randomize it.
I think I'm gonna add my stars later.
Okay, yeah.
Perhaps tomorrow.
I never.
More tomorrow.
I never
Yeah.
got my stars.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right.
Have a good evening.
Oh, you taking off, Sally? Okay, yeah. Take care.
Hey, Sally.
Thanks so
Maybe
much
see
for
you
coming
tomorrow.
out. Mm-hmm.
Put that over there.
It does sound like a dog.
No, it's annoying.
It's okay.
Neat.
Sounds like I'm hurting a puppy.
Don't hurt the puppy, Sally. Don't hurt the puppy.
I'm not a big fan of animals, but I've never been mean to one.
I didn't think you would be.
Yeah. It's quite gross. But whatever.
I'm kind of using up the rest of the white that's on my brushes from my stars I'm adding a bit of it to the clouds. That's mostly just because I'm just trying to use up the excess white. But yeah, after that, it's pretty much done. You can sign it and call it a day.